what's happening, everybody? So I'm here with John, and we've got an amazing material here for building cabinetry or any kind of structures or insulation within your van or sailboat or RV or school bus or submarine or airplane, whatever you want to make a super lightweight, strong, cost-effective, and easy to make with no special tools kind of material. So what do you got for us?
We're talking about expanded polystyrene foam, also called EPS foam.
Okay.
You'll find this in blue, pink, green. Just depends on the store you get it. Sometimes Lowe's, Home Depot. I believe it's Home Depot that carries the pink.
And these are like $10 a sheet, right?
$10 a sheet for the 1/2 inch. They make it in 1 inch, 2 inch. I mean, you can get it all the way up to like 4 inches thick.
Okay, but you're mainly worked with the 1/2 inch, right?
I work with the 1/2 inch
And
just because it gives more room.
It's strong enough. Okay. So it's compact and strong. It is insulation for whatever you're building this in. We're specifically talking about vans. We're van people, but...
That's correct. Now the foam itself is not rigid. You can see it flexes really easy. It's not really strong, but you can't compress it. And when they do foundations for a house, like a concrete foundation, they'll actually put this underneath the concrete and pour the concrete over top of it.
Wow.
So it stands up to compression and weight very well. It just doesn't have the rigidity we need to make it useful.
Wow, okay. So super strong one way, but very weak another way.
Correct.
So you blend it with this.
Yes, and
which is...
this, in our example, this is screen. This is just fiberglass porch screen. You can get right at the same box stores. It could also be canvas. It could be anything that it's weak this way, but it doesn't stretch. And this is what would be considered tensile strength.
Very
so
strong.
By merging that tensile strength with the compressive strength, you end up with a composite, what they call composite sandwich. So if you picture this, this flat plane here, when this bends, the distance to go from this edge to this edge increases.
Okay.
So by layering up something with a real strong tensile strength over that, that's going to resist that.
And it ends up being incredibly strong.
Very light and very strong.
Very light and very strong. This is really cool. All right, so let's show you how to do it. So what is the downside of this? It's the aesthetics, right?
The aesthetics. It's a very bumpy, uneven finish, depending on which materials you're using for the composite. And it doesn't hold screws well, so you can't just hang things arbitrarily wherever you want. You got to pre-plan places to put chunks of wood to bear weight.
Ah, okay. Well, that could be a really good opportunity to get really creative with it and end up with a really original thing, like your last build, which I did a tour of. There's a link in the description that's popping up the card section right now. You took all those maps and put them on there. That was really cool. You guys should check out that build. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. So what are the different materials you tried to use, and what did you end up with? You ended up with the fiberglass.
We did. Remember, we're starting out with this, which has really no strength to it. The first one I tried came from what they call the foamy community, and that's people that build lightweight travel trailers out of foam and canvas. And that's what this is. It's canvas foam and wood glue. And I just found it kind of unattractive.
Yeah, no flex there.
It's very hard, it's very rigid, it's too bumpy and too ugly. The next thing I tried was aluminum screen, which I picked up at a hardware store to try something different. It's very strong, but it's hard to work with. You can cut your hands a little bit on the aluminum, and I ended up not liking it as much.
You gotta have something real strong and sharp to cut it with on it.
Yeah.
It dulls blades like crazy, I'll bet.
I also tried very lightweight 1/8 inch plywood, and it's super strong and super light for its strength, but I couldn't imagine building all the cabinets out of this. I mean, the idea is to keep it lightweight and easy as possible, and you do need power tools to cut the plywood.
This is definitely much heavier than the other ones too.
Definitely.
Much heavier. It's definitely strong though. Ow.
And this is what we ended up with in the end. This isn't the aluminum screen, this is fiberglass screen. It's just the charcoal fiberglass, $8 for a 25-foot roll. But it's got the perfect blend of properties. It's really rigid. It's not as stiff as some of the other examples, but the stuff cuts with scissors, it cuts with razor blades. You could apply it on right with this glidden paint, where the other stuff, might want to curl away from it.
Ah.
So it had every advantage we needed.
And once you get it to this position where it's got all these different angles and stuff, it's much stronger, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So let's take a look on how you actually put these together because this is pretty complex. All right, guys. So we got the finished or the almost finished product here. You have to do the screen on this, right?
Correct.
But this is the foam.
This is the foam. It technically would be called a foam buck. Before we lay it up, that's what it would be called if this was actually fiberglass. But what we did is we made templates. We traced the contours of the side of the van. This is actually going to be a cabinet that covers the side pillar in between the windows on a passenger van.
You made like cardboard templates?
Cardboard templates, cut it out, and just simply free-handed the curves with a razor blade. It's so easy to follow a line once it's scribed on there. And from there, just got all the pieces together, and what we do is we use this Gorilla Glue, and we apply it along the edge. We push these pieces together, and we use drywall screws just with a hand screwdriver to screw this in and clamp it in place while the glue cures.
Very smart. And I see you've got your wood spots in here, so there's going to be a door on here. You're gonna attach some hinges to, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's two hinges. I know where they're going to be. You got to pre-plan like we talked about before, but I know I could put screws into here for hinges, and they're going to hold just fine.
Nice.
Now, even our little shelf inside is made the same way.
So it's cut all the foam, make a template, get all your measurements perfect the way you want them, and then cut out the foam and put all the foam together. And the next step is the screen, right?
Correct.
Cool. So how does that work? Do you paint it and then just set the screen on, or?
Oh yeah, in fact, this is one I'm working on. We could do a section of it so everyone can check it out.
Yeah, let's see it.
I like to start with the inside and do all these inside corners. What I'll do is I'll take about 2-inch wide strips of screen, and I'm going to paint them right into the corners all the way around. So I like to start out just by wetting the area down with paint. And this is that Glidden gripper that we were talking about. And I'm going to go ahead and just paint all these inside corners. And it could be a little messy, but it's really not too bad. Now there's going to be some areas where that Gorilla Glue likes to really expand. If you get really huge chunks sticking out, you might want to chip those away with your razor blade. But I've learned that unless they're really extreme, I just paint them right into the corners and they just kind of radius out. So now I've got all that laid in, I am going to start laying this in. So you can see this is already pre-cut to the size we need. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a crease, push it right into the paint. And you're going to get your fingers wet and white doing this. But all we're trying to do is lay this in there, and then we're going to take our paintbrush and really just push it into the corner. And this is really the first coat. We will do a second coat after this one dries, and it normally takes an hour or two. And this little overhang we'll trim with a razor blade when we're all done. So I'm going to do the same thing. Basically every inside corner will be treated the same way. You can see this overlaps just right over the top of the old stuff. Sometimes you might need to add a little bit of paint to your brush. I'm going to do the same thing again. Just kind of press it right into the corner nice and tight. And this paint's going to work its way down to the foam and act basically as a glue to hold this all in place. So as we're doing this, we're really reinforcing these corners. Alright, so now we've got all of our inside corners laid in. I put a little extra paint over it so it can start drying. Now we're going to start doing the big flat surfaces. So that's our shelf inside the cabinet, for example. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to wet this all down with this paint. And then I'm going to apply the screen the exact same way. And it's going to overlap onto those reinforcing strips we did on all those corners. And that's really going to help make this really strong for being such a lightweight cabinet. So that's in place. Again, don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. This stuff washes right off. It's all water-based. And then we're just going to brush it off, brush the wrinkles out. Once it's down, you might want to dip your brush a couple times, add a little extra paint. And you're going to do this for all your flat surfaces that meet up with those corners that we just did. So here's this piece. We do it here, do it here, do it along the top. And then we're going to set it somewhere to dry. Normally takes an hour or two. And then we're going to give one more coat of paint. And once that dries, it's pretty much done on the inside. Alright, so we finished our inside work, at least on here. Next you would go to the outside work. And all I did was take some screen material and cut it to approximately the right size for this face. What we'll do is we're going to glue this on with this paint. After it dries, we're going to take a razor and just chop it off along the corners to get a nice clean edge. So just like I have with everything else, I'm going to wet this whole surface down with paint. If you notice, I'm going to go right over the door openings. We're going to cut those out later also. And you can see these are the wood blocks that are inlaid in there where the hinges are going to go. We're going to go right over top of that with the screen. And basically this is just going to kind of blend everything together. It'll hide a lot of imperfections where these mate together. I did just notice something while I was doing this. I missed a spot of glue. On the inside, I don't worry about it too much, but you can see there's a pretty big bump here, and that's because it had some of that Gorilla Glue coming out. So I'm just going to take that and work it off with this knife. This stuff's pretty tough. So now that's nice and smoothed out, and I know that's not going to cause a huge bubble or wrinkle when I put this screen on. And what's nice about working like this, just as I found that, you can do a lot of things on the fly. If you notice something's wrong, you just deal with the problem and keep working. So now I've got this laid out. It's the same as everything else. You can see how this the screen really soaks up the paint as I'm going over it. And that's really it pulls it down nice and tight, gives it a nice uniform appearance. And again, we're going to do 2 coats on the outside just like we did the inside. Let it dry, and when it dries, we're going to take a razor blade and we're just going to cut along all these edges, and we'll end up with a face that's completely covered in the screen. Now this doesn't have to be perfect. Especially, that's why we talked about these alternative coverings, getting something that kind of looks good if you have a couple lumps and bumps here and there, and that's where the paper bag technique really can camouflage any small things. But that's it. This is already ready to set out, dry, do a second coat, and then when that's all dry, we're just going to cut those openings out and trim this up with a razor, turn each side over, and it's done. I normally don't worry about any raw edges that aren't going to be exposed, so I won't do anything with these edges here when it's done, just all the visible parts. And really, in an afternoon, a cabinet like this can be done quite easily. All right, I'm going to show you a few things on this finished piece. This was our first layer we put down. If you look here, there's some low spots here, and you might get driven a little bit crazy trying to work paint in there. Let that first layer dry, and after that's dry, that second layer will soak in there and fill in any of these small little imperfections. It's really the second layer that smooths things out a lot. I want to take a second to show you how easy it is to set this stuff up and get it to cut. One reason to put the strip in was to reinforce, but the other reason is it gives you a lot of slop room for overlap here. So if I want to size this to fit here, I can basically just eyeball it, move it onto the table, and literally cut it right in place. It doesn't have to be perfect. We will be trimming any excess off after the paint dries. So as quick as that, I can have something sized appropriately and just kind of hold it in place. And I basically just freehand everything. So now I'm ready to paint this on, and I'm going to do the same process again. And this moves really quick. I mean, you can cover this whole cabinet in a matter of half an hour. All right, we took a couple minutes to finish the inside, put those sides in this little top piece. You can see how everything kind of just overlaps, and that's fine, just like this bottom piece overlaps those strengthening pieces in the corners. All these just overlap. You just overlap them, paint them in. The next layer of paint will actually hide that to the point where you can barely even see it. But that's a complete inside that's done. The next thing we would do, of course, would be this inside part, these outside skins. But as you can see, it's a really quick process. It is messy, but up till now, we still haven't used a single power tool. Now, after this dries and you do your second coat and that dries, all we do is, when we're done, is we're going to take our razor blade and we're just going to take it and follow our contour. This isn't dry yet, so I'm not going to do it on this one, but all I would do is cut this with the razor blade, all around here. I would flip this around, and I would do the same for our openings. Again, once you get your razor blade in there, it's going to follow, the edge of this blade is going to follow those cut-in contours, and it goes so quick and easy. If you end up with any bad areas, you can take a little sanding block and hit those and kind of round them out, or smooth them out a little bit and add a little more paint to smooth it out. So it doesn't have to be exact, but that's really all you need to do. On the builds I've done, I've just left the exposed foam edges in between the screen. It doesn't bother me that it's there, and it's actually kind of a neat way to show it off that, look, this is foam.
So you were telling me that they make airplanes out of this stuff, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of planes out there that use foams, fabric like Dacron fabric, that use all the same principles of using compressive foam and some kind of tensile strength fabric structure over it. And there's one that's actually really popular. It's called a Sky Pup. You can look it up online, but it's got a 20-foot wingspan. It's a home-built ultralight aircraft. The wing is made of nothing but foam with, I mean, maybe quarter-inch strips of wooden key areas like on the main wing spars. Part of that load test is taking this 20-foot wingspan, blocking it up, and putting 500 pounds of sandbags on each side. And if you could imagine the leverage that would have on this foam wing, and there's specifications, but I mean, it's only supposed to deflect, you know, a couple inches or so. But it really shows how strong this is, and people actually put their lives on the line riding in these airplanes built out of foam like that.
Wow, it's good enough for an airplane. It's good enough for my van. I will, from now on, I will be using this technique to build out vans, because this is awesome. We got 2 examples of vans that are built with this technique, and it's just amazing. So thank you so much for showing this to us. I think this is really going to help a lot of people out. So very grateful for that. And so the next part, the finish, it ends up looking like this. This is the aluminum piece, but it's essentially the same thing with the fiberglass. So we're going to show you guys how to do, what'd you call it, the paper what?
We call it the paper bag technique or rippy bit technique, and we're going to cover that next.
And you can use any kind of paper for this, and you can get real creative with it, make it look really cool.
Newspapers, maps, I mean, you name it.
Yeah, so the next video, check it out, guys. We'll show you how to make this look really cool. Thanks for watching. Woo! Love you so.